I saw a text message on my wife's phone from my best friend. Come to my place while your dumb husband is at work. She replied to him, this loser won't even notice that I was with you. She thought I was an idiot, but after 5 hours, I had 57 missed calls from her when I had always believed that life, like one of my neat spreadsheets, could be balanced, family in column A, work in column B, friendships in column C. When every cell added up, the sum was happiness. For 6 calm years in our Maple Line suburb outside Chicago, the formula held. My wife, Amy, painted joy onto every ordinary morning. My childhood friend, Benjamin Ben Stevens, was still the brother I had chosen at recess. At 35, I drove the same reliable sedan, mowed the same rectangle of grass every Saturday, and felt I had mastered the arithmetic of contentment. Then came the last Tuesday of April. Quarter-end closings turned the trading floor into a hive. Monitors flickered red and green. Analysts shouted ticker symbols like battlefield coordinates. By 7 in the evening, the glass towers around us were already reflecting night, but my team was still exorcising gremlins from a stubborn risk report. When the final cell went from error to okay, a weary cheer rose, and I allowed myself 30 seconds of victory. My phone vibrated against my hip. Amy's text. On my way to pick you up. Traffic's ugly. Home in an hour. I pictured her fingers tapping, the little crease between her eyebrows when she tried to beat the GPS. I replied with a thank you emoji, logged out, and descended into the rainy streets feeling tired but content. The drive was a drizzle-blurred ribbon. Wipers clicked time. I rehearsed a surprise. I had ordered her favorite jasmine tea set. It was waiting in the trunk beneath the umbrella. I imagined her smile and pressed the accelerator a little, eager to arrive first and hide the gift. Our windows glowed warmly when I turned onto Sycamore Lane. Strange, I thought. Amy was still on the road. Maybe she had asked a neighbor to feed the cat. Inside, the kitchen smelled of cinnamon, but the house was silent. Her phone lay face up on the oak table like a beached fish, screen pulsing with a new message. Ben, come over while your clueless husband is crunching numbers. My pulse stuttered. Another bubble had already slid above it. Amy's reply. He'll never notice I'm gone. Everything rational inside me shut down. I scrolled. Their thread was thin but sharp. 2 weeks of teasing logistics, half-coded rendezvous, shared jokes at my expense. My best friend's confidence dripped off the screen. Rain hammered the skylight. I called Amy. Voicemail. I called Ben. He answered on the first ring, laughter in the background as though he were mid-toast. Mike, you home already? Where's Amy? Oh, just helping me sketch a marketing deck. Nothing dramatic. A chair scraped behind him, a muffled giggle that wasn't his. My vision tunneled. The call ended without goodbye. I marched through rooms hunting for any innocent explanation, receipts, notes, a forgotten appointment card. Nothing. Only the echo of their words. When rage and heartbreak mix, they curdle into focus. I packed a box with Amy's essentials, dresses, toiletries, the photo from our honeymoon sunrise. Each item felt radioactive. The storm outside amped up, wind screaming through gutters as though cheering me on. At 10:13 p.m., I placed the box on the porch. A half-hearted porch light buzzed above, illuminating my scrawled note. Amy, trust is gone. Collect your things and leave. Michael. She had once told me my handwriting looked like falling dominoes. Tonight they spelled collapse. I should have slept, but the night was unfinished. I drove to Ben's condo across the river, where converted warehouses overlook restless water. I pictured them drinking wine by his exposed brick fireplace. The street lamp threw my shadow across his door as I knocked. He opened, wearing the smug half-smile that decorated every high school yearbook picture of him. No Amy in sight, yet her perfume lingered like a confession. I tossed her silk slippers onto his hardwood floor. Return those too, I said. For the first time, Ben looked small, like a boy caught pocketing candy. His mouth shaped an excuse, but I had quit the conversation. I left him with the quiet and the rain. Driving home, I expected devastation, maybe even regret. Instead, there was an eerie clarity, as if betrayal had stripped the color from life but sharpened every edge. At 3:47 a.m., I stepped onto my porch. The box was gone. A neighbor later admitted she had sheltered it from the storm, pity in her eyes. Amy's phone, forgotten earlier, now lay where my note had been, screen fractured from the cold. 57 missed calls from unknown numbers. Hers, no doubt borrowed, and a parade of messages, apologies, please, frantic promises to explain. I blocked every contact and dropped the device into the kitchen sink where rainwater from my coat was pooling. It fizzed like a shorted fuse. Yet freedom is not instant peace. You don't just subtract someone and regain zero. Echoes remain. Dawn bled through the blinds as I brewed coffee and opened my leather notebook. Page 1. Rules for the new equation. Before ink could dry, my office line rang. I hesitated, then answered. A distorted voice whispered, "You aren't safe." Click. No caller ID. I stared at the receiver. Was this Amy? A prank? Or something worse? I shrugged off paranoia and wrote another rule. No more fear. That afternoon, HR summoned me. They had received an anonymous tip that I was leaking earnings data. An email thread, conveniently forwarded, showed confidential spreadsheets sent from my address to Ben's consultancy. The timestamps placed the breach during nights I'd been home watching detective reruns. The company froze my accounts pending investigation. Amy's betrayal hurt, but this moved the knife. Someone was engineering my ruin. The only person with motive and access to both my personal and professional life was Ben. And if Amy had helped him fabricate an alibi. I spent the next 48 hours in detective mode. I compared email headers, traced IP logs, interviewed the night shift janitor who had seen a tall man with a guest badge in our sector. Piece by piece, a picture formed. Ben had used Amy's car key to access our garage, cloned my badge with a cheap RFID skimmer, and siphoned data to front-run our quarterly report. The affair had been the smoke hiding the real fire. I presented my dossier to corporate security. They were skeptical until I offered the janitor's testimony and CCTV timestamps mismatching my login swipe. An internal probe expanded. Ben's brokerage accounts were subpoenaed, a pattern of suspicious trades lit up like hazard beacons. While the auditors chewed on evidence, my house sat empty. Amy, still unseen, sent a courier with a handwritten letter for pages of remorse. She claimed Ben had lured her during my long work weeks, promised adventure, then threatened to expose intimate photos unless she cooperated with his scheme. She begged forgiveness, said she would testify. I read her words beneath the kitchen's fluorescent glow, trying to hear her voice in them. I couldn't. Fear echoed louder than love. I filed the letter in a sealed envelope marked evidence and returned to the notebook. 1 week later, federal agents raided Ben's loft at dawn. Neighbors filmed from windows as he emerged in cuffs, designer hoodie covering yesterday's arrogance. News sites devoured the story, consultant arrested in insider trading ring. My name appeared only as cooperating analyst. That night, Amy stood on the sidewalk outside our house, raincoat shiny under streetlights. I watched through the curtain, heart thudding like a jury verdict. She didn't knock. Instead, she placed the jasmine tea set, my gift, on the welcome mat, its porcelain shining through cellophane. A note under the bow read, "I broke everything I loved. I hope this stays whole." She stepped back, looked up at our bedroom window, and mouthed something. Maybe, "I'm sorry." Maybe, "Goodbye." Then she turned and walked into the gray mist. I did not open the door until her silhouette dissolved. The tea set's delicate cups felt absurdly fragile in my hands, yet intact. I brewed one, inhaling the floral steam, and realized the scent no longer hurt. Weeks passed. HR cleared my name. The board issued an apology, and a promotion followed. Risk director, column D now weightier than the rest. I converted the guest room into a studio, filled it with canvases and bold oils. Painting was chaotic and unbalanced. I like that. Some nights the betrayal replays, but it no longer owns the narrative. The notebook's final page reads, "Trust the math, but check the variables." I signed it and closed the cover. Because formulas, like people, work until they don't. And when they break, the answer isn't to stop calculating. It's to learn a new equation and keep solving until the numbers sing true. The silence after the scandal felt heavier than the scandal itself. Reporters camped outside Ben's former penthouse, but my street returned to its old hush, as though the trees had collectively agreed not to gossip. Even the cat, Newton, padded softer across the hardwood. I thought I wanted quiet. Instead, it amplified every inner echo. At 2 in the morning, I would replay 15-year-old memories, hunting for the crack where friendship had first begun to leak. One memory clung stubbornly. 8th grade, Lake Michigan's October waters crashing cold against a wooden pier. Ben bet that I wouldn't jump. I did. Slipped. and the undertow yanked me under. I remember the blur of algae green light, the rush of water in ears, the sudden strong grip, Ben hauling me back by my collar, coughing, laughing, then hugging me so tight I felt his ribs. For years I believed that grip meant he would always pull me out of danger. Now I wondered if he had cataloged my fears even then, saving them for future leverage. Therapy, surprisingly, entered my life via corporate mandate. As part of my reinstatement, HR offered sessions with Dr. Lin, a soft-spoken psychologist whose office smelled of vanilla and dry erase markers. I resisted the first 3 appointments, answering her questions with financial metaphors. Risk must be diversified. Losses sometimes trigger a margin call of the soul. On the 4th visit, she shut her notebook and said, "Michael, metaphors are anchors. You're supposed to sail." Something in the stern kindness of her tone unmoored me. I spoke for an hour, no metaphors, only water-clear facts and the mud beneath them. After therapy, I took up running at dawn along the forest preserve. The air tasted metallic, and my lungs argued, but the rhythm quieted my brain. One foggy morning, I saw a doe watching from the trees. Instead of bolting, she stepped closer, ears twitching. We stared at each other until my watch beeped. She bounded off, yet I felt chosen, as though nature had stamped me still worthy. Work, however, became a chessboard of second glances. Colleagues who used to share inside jokes now paused conversations when I walked by, unsure whether my exoneration was total. To combat the unease, I volunteered to spearhead an audit of our data loss policies. Immersed in logs and encryption protocols, I rediscovered the thrill of building something no thief could easily breach. My presentation to the board featured a single slide, a lock icon morphing into a heartbeat. "Security isn't a vault," I said. "It's trust made measurable." Outside the office, letters kept arriving from Amy, never emails, always handwritten, as though pixels themselves had betrayed her. I stored them unopened in a fire-safe box. Dr. Lin asked why I kept them if I never planned to read them. "Proof," I said, though proof of what I couldn't articulate. Some nights I placed the box on my desk and simply stared, as if the sealed words emitted heat. A subplot unfolded when the SEC's case against Ben reached the discovery phase. His defense claimed the insider trades were orchestrated by a shadow investor known only as Argonaut. The name sounded mythical, almost romantic, but bank records linked the alias to a shell account in the Cayman Islands funded by, of all people, Bryson Kells, our firm's rival CTO. The revelation exploded across financial news feeds. It turned out Ben had been merely a hired funnel, paid in both money and influence to siphon my department's data. The prosecutors wanted my testimony to establish chain of custody for the data. Preparing meant reliving every compromised login, every doctored timestamp. I spent evenings sorting discovery files, laptop balanced on the jasmine-scented tea table, irony thick enough to slice. The night before I took the stand, I dreamed that cells in a spreadsheet kept turning red no matter what formula I wrote, bleeding across columns like a spreading rash. I woke panting, threw on a hoodie, and ran 5 miles in the dark. Testifying was surreal. Federal courtroom 21B smelled of old wood and fresh coffee. Ben sat at the defense table in an ill-fitting suit, eyes ringed with insomnia. When our gazes met, I expected hatred. Instead, I saw something sadder, astonishment, like a gambler who can't believe the house really collects its debt. Under oath, I narrated the audit trail, the forged headers, the janitor's testimony, even Amy's coerced involvement. Each fact felt like dropping a stone in water, ripples extended to places I couldn't see. During recess, Ben approached me, flanked by marshals. He whispered, "I never meant to hit you that hard, Mike. I thought we'd both get rich and laugh about it." His words were shards. I let them fall. The jury needed 3 hours. Guilty on 6 counts of securities fraud, 2 of extortion. Sentencing was scheduled for December, maximum combined penalty, 50 years. The courthouse lobby buzzed like a shaken hornet nest, but outside, a gentle autumn sun warmed the stone steps. I exhaled and felt the knot in my gut loosened by a single twist. Weeks blurred. Leaves crisped and fell. Newton learned to chase them across the porch. One Saturday, I found myself at a local art fair, pausing before a stall of minimalist ink drawings. A woman in a turquoise scarf greeted me. They're all made with one continuous line. Her name was Claire. She was the artist. We spoke for an hour about motion, about how a single unbroken stroke could suggest both chaos and coherence. I bought a small piece depicting two interlocking shapes, almost but not quite a heart. She wrapped it carefully, her fingers brushed mine, and something sparked. Claire and I began meeting for coffee, then for late-night gallery openings. On our fifth outing, she asked about the tea set, its delicate cups. I told her the history, expecting the topic to sour the evening. Instead, she smiled gently and said, "Porcelain is fired at 2,600 degrees. It survives because it's been through the fire, not in spite of it." I felt something unlock. Yet healing isn't linear. One windy evening in November, a courier delivered another envelope, this one from Ben, postmarked from the Metropolitan Correctional Center. Curiosity overpowered resolve. Inside was a single Polaroid from our high school graduation. Ben, Amy, and me, arms slung together, invincible. On the back he'd written, "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to send a picture from before I learned how to lose." No request, no plea, just that. I placed the photo into the safe with Amy's letters and shut the lid. December arrived sharp and glittering. The sentencing hearing filled the news cycle. Reporters speculated on precedent, on deterrence, on the sad symmetry of friendship turned felony. Ben received 32 years. When the judge read the term, he nodded once, as if acknowledging a figure on a ledger. Debit accepted. Afterward, Amy's lawyer contacted me with a settlement offer for divorce. No contest, amicable split. She would keep the lake cabin. I would keep the house. I signed without comment, the pen surprisingly steady. On New Year's Eve, I hosted a small gathering, colleagues, neighbors, Claire. At midnight, fireworks cracked above the snow-soft suburb. I stood on the deck with Claire's gloved hand in mine, feeling neither manic joy nor lingering sorrow, but something steady, like ground after quake. I raised a glass to the sky and whispered a quiet vow, to audit my heart as rigorously as my spreadsheets, to notice errors early, to celebrate balances. Later, alone, I opened the notebook one last time. Beneath the final rule, I wrote a postscript. Equations evolve. Variables combust. But somewhere, someone is drawing a new continuous line. I closed the cover, not with finality, but with forward motion, like flipping the first page of the next book. A storm began to tap the windows, the first rain of the new year. I listened without fear, brewed jasmine tea in one of the delicate cups, and watched the porcelain steam swirl upward, unbroken, toward whatever lay next. 1 year later, almost to the week, I stood at the starting corral of the Chicago Spring Half Marathon, bib number flapping against a windbreaker. The skyline glittered blue glass. The lake looked like hammered steel under morning sun. Claire, now my partner in more than art appreciation, tightened the laces on my shoe and kissed my cheek. "Find your pace," she said. The pistol cracked, and thousands of feet thundered south along Columbus Drive. Running beside so many strangers, I felt how narratives braid and unravel. No one knew that mile by mile I was measuring distance not only in asphalt but in forgiveness. At mile 8, just past the museum where Amy and I once slow danced at a wedding, a volunteer handed me water. I smiled because the cup was a tiny coincidence, a harmless ghost. The finish line arrived like a question mark. I crossed, stopped my watch, and realized I had beaten my goal by 3 minutes. Claire sprinted over, holding 2 cups of coffee instead of medals, and together we walked to the harbor's edge where sailboats bumped gently. We spoke of trivial things, paint pigments, new apartment curtains, yet underneath, a resonance hummed. The future was no longer endangered. That afternoon, we visited the art supply store. I chose a canvas the size of a doorway. When it dried, I hung it in the study opposite the safe that held the letters and the photo. Sometimes I catch the curve in peripheral vision, gleaming like an open gate. In February, Dr. Lin discharged me with a handshake and a final metaphor. Hers this time. Trauma is a storm that teaches architecture. I left her office into crisp air and felt grateful for the blueprint she had helped me sketch. Ben writes once every few months from prison. His letters now speak of books he is reading, of a GED class he tutors. I reply occasionally, brief notes with no blame but no illusions. Amy, I hear, moved to Oregon, joined a cooperative bakery, and studies counseling. I wish her quiet healing. On the first day of spring, Claire and I buried a time capsule beneath the backyard maple. Inside, we placed a printout of my original risk report, a vial of jasmine tea leaves, a photograph of us mid-laughter, and a note reading, "Open in 20 years, adjust positions accordingly." The soil packed firm above it, and the tree overhead shrugged new buds into the sky. Tonight, as I set down these final words, Newton curls beside the monitor, purring like a distant summer lawnmower. The neighborhood is peaceful, streetlights casting honey pools. Raindrops begin soft, exploratory. They tap the roof, not as drums of impending betrayal, but as percussion for a quieter song. I inhale jasmine, exhale figures, and watch the world add up, not perfectly, but honestly.